silently stomping at you like a herd of ghostly elephants. It's the Blue Elephant Brigade podcast with your hosts John Hoover and Phill Hernandez. Welcome to the Elephant's Graveyard, where our herd will regale you with a series of short but bone-chilling pachyderm tales.
For our first story comes from the book Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I remember from when I was a young kid, growing up in my quiet country town. One day, a boy was digging in his garden when he saw a big toe sticking out of the ground. He tried to pick it up, but it was stuck. It wouldn't budge. So he pulled as hard as he could, and it came off in his hand. Then he heard something groan and scampered away. The boy took the big toe into the kitchen and he showed it to his mom. "That looks like a nice piece of meat," she said. "I'll put it in the soup and we'll have it for dinner." That night, at the dinner table, the boy's father scooped up the big toe and cut it into 3 pieces. The father, the mother, and the boy each ate a piece. Then they did the dishes, and when it got dark, they went to bed. The boy fell asleep almost at once. But in the middle of the night, he was rudely awakened by a strange sound. He listened closely. It sounded like there was a voice coming from outside his window, and it was calling to him. "Where's my big toe?" When the boy heard that, he got very scared. But he thought, "It doesn't know where I am. It'll never find me." Then he heard the voice once more, only now it was closer. "Where's my big toe?" The boy pulled the blankets over his head and closed his eyes. "I'll go to sleep," he thought, "and when I wake up, it'll be gone." But soon, he heard the back door open. And again he heard the voice. "Where's my big toe?" Then the boy heard footsteps moving through the kitchen, into the dining room, into the living room, into the front hall. They slowly climbed the stairs. Closer and closer they came. Soon they were in the upstairs hall. Now they were outside his door. "Where's my toe?" The boy watched in horror as his bedroom door slowly opened. Shaking with fear, he threw his bedclothes over his head and listened as the footsteps slowly moved through the dark towards his bed. Then they stopped. "Where's my toe? You've got it!"
And now to take an upbeat song and reveal the truth of its lyrics. Maxwell Silver Hammer by the Beatles. Joan was quizzical, studied pataphysical science in the home. Late nights all alone with a test tube. Maxwell Edison, majoring in medicine, calls her on the phone. "Can I take you out to the pictures, Joan?" But as she's getting ready to go, a knock comes on the door. Bang, bang. Maxwell's silver hammer came down upon her head. Bang, bang. Maxwell's silver hammer made sure that she was dead. Back in school again. Maxwell plays the fool again. Teacher gets annoyed. Wishing to avoid an unpleasant scene, she tells Max to stay when the class has gone away. So he waits behind, writing 50 times, "I must not be so." But when she turns her back on the boy, he creeps up from behind. Bang, bang. Maxwell's silver hammer came down upon her head. Bang, bang. Maxwell's silver hammer made sure that she was dead. PC31 said, "We caught a dirty one." Maxwell stands alone painting testimonial pictures. Rose and Valerie, screaming from the gallery, say he must go free, but the judge does not agree, and he tells them so. But as the words are leaving his lips, a noise comes from behind. Bang, bang. Maxwell's silver hammer came down upon his head. Bang, bang. Maxwell's silver hammer made sure that he was dead.
So Phill, next up, we have Nate Waldren and his terrifying tale of nothing happening in the woods.
If a meganoggin falls in the woods, does anybody notice?
Let's find out and listen.
I was working on a timber sale a little bit east of Tacoma, Washington, and found during the course of my layout and planning of this timber sale that I had been in the presence of an actual legitimate murderer. The guy's name was I should just leave the glasses on and not worry about the reflection. Tuckson. Dalton Tuckson was his name. He was a drifter, apparently. According to this article here, it says that he had killed a guy who was a friend of his, and it was an argument over a girlfriend or some nonsense like that. I don't really know. At any rate, the articles, if you look this guy up, Dalton Tuckson, he evidently was some sort of a survivalist and hid on the property where I work, Fort Lewis. And it turns out my timber sale that I was working on was where he hid. I was within yards of his camp dozens of times while he was, the subject of a significant manhunt. And once they found the guy and I was allowed back into my timber sale, I went, moth to a flame right back to the police tape, and sure enough, I'd gone right past the guy who knows how many times.
Hey, John, did you know that Tabby has a story about a threesome?
This is Tabitha Raye Miller you speak of.
Yep.
It's perhaps the worst type of threesome. You have the good threesome, the devil's threesome, and then the murder threesome.
Yeah, I'm not good with that last one.
Yeah, no. You're cool with the devil's threesome, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't understand why that needs further explanation.
The dream was too vivid to even know it was a dream. The setting took place at a garden party where the food and people were satisfying. Two gentlemen, Jasper and Frank, nestled among a group of wealthy citizens, till all of a sudden a rumor began to spread across the room. Jessabelle was invited to the party. Jessabelle was on her way. Due to the stories Jasper heard about her, he wasn't quite fond of meeting her. A hush came among the people as he shifted his eyes to see a young, tall, gorgeous woman standing in the doorway. She was greeting the host and walked around the room. She looked normal to him, and it was hard to believe that she was different. Jasper and Frank became frightened as she walked towards them. As impulsive as Frank was, he panicked, then grabbed a glass of holy water and splashed it all over Jessabelle. For a moment she screamed in pain, and then her eyes locked. She glared at Frank and Jasper with malicious glint. Frank woke up trembling and levitating. Jasper opened the door as soon as Frank collapsed on the bed. "Don't tell me you also had the dream," Jasper asked. Frank nodded slowly and afraid. "Jessabelle," they said simultaneously. The villainous woman was constantly in their minds, so they decided to hang out by the creek. Little did they know that the creek was where Jessabelle died. They talked and laughed as Jessabelle continued to fade from their minds. Thinking that the atmosphere was all safe and sound, Jessabelle was actually present. Frank squeaked at what he saw, a familiar figure, with the same malicious glint. She stood before him. Jasper's heart nearly jumped out of his chest. Jessabelle was here, and she didn't look quite happy. Jessabelle's figure passed by Frank, burning him as if she was acidic. "Painful, isn't it?" she smirked. "Just like your bloody water." Frank died and fell down, giving her just one more victim to play with. No matter how hard Jasper wanted to move, he couldn't. He was glued to the spot, and Jessabelle slashed Jasper's tender skin with her nails. After licking his blood off her hands, she began to flay Jasper, giving him a death he couldn't imagine. On Sunday morning, the streets of London were buzzing with news about the death of Frank Pemberton and Jasper Harrington. Their decapitated heads were found by the creek along with pieces of skin. The news reporter interviewed a woman called Jessabelle, who saw their heads by the creek. "It was just awful," she cried. Jessabelle was comforted by the news reporter, but whispered in his ears, "I'll see you in your dreams."
Hey, Phil, some people just live with ghosts every single day of their lives, as though it's just a matter-of-fact thing.
Our paranormal is their normal.
Yes.
A Ghost Story by Todd and Lisa White, though don't expect Lisa to say anything because she's way too embarrassed to talk. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories, actually. The first one we're going to call The Ghost in the Car, which actually it's a lot spookier than that title sounds. So anyway, about my wife and I, Lisa has always been sort of able to see things, and I've sort of seen things on the fringe, but we never really talked about it before till a couple years ago, and we just started having these conversations because in our house there was sort of a heaviness that we could feel at times, and we just started talking about this heaviness that we could always feel. And she talked about how there's actually some buildings and things, stores, that she just cannot go into because if that energy is so negative, it physically makes her ill. And then she talked about how she can see shadows and shapes and things like that. Not all the time, but enough to sometimes weird herself out. And I was like, man, I'm the same way. I don't see things all the time, but enough that I'll be like, hey. So she started sort of talking about these. It sort of turned on our ghost radar, for lack of a better word, and we found ourselves, I don't know, some people may say, well, it was the power of suggestion, dude. You talked about like seeing these ghosts and stuff, and then you see ghosts, but shit we saw was stuff we saw. It wasn't just a shadow from a lamp. It wasn't a car going by the window. It was weird stuff that started popping out. So here is the ghost in the car story for you. We're driving in our car, and it was not even dark out. It was late in the day, and we're both sitting in the front seat, and we're driving down the street having a conversation, and I noticed this black sphere, this silhouette of something in front of the car. And as we're approaching this silhouette, this shadow sort of leaps up and just comes right through the window. Now, what makes the story interesting is as the shadow came through the window, at the exact same time, Lisa leaned to her right and I leaned to my left. The exact same time. It was like something we couldn't have planned it, timed it any better. We both lean, we sit up in the car, we continue to stare, and we probably drove for, now it seemed like 5 minutes of absolute silence, but it's probably only maybe a moment or so. And finally I said, whatever's in the car, it's probably in the back seat. And she was like, yep. And we didn't have the balls to turn around and see it was behind us. So that's our first ghost story. Now, again, I can tell you more, but I thought that was sort of interesting. The second one, we're going to call it The Haunted Honeymoon. Now, not the Gene Wilder movie, The Haunted Honeymoon. This is when we were married. We were in a bed and breakfast in Palm Harbor. And again, Lisa is not only sees stuff, but she also gets touched quite often by spirits. Sometimes it'll be when she's in bed, sometimes when she's walking around, but these things will touch her hard enough that, she notices it's not something brushing against her to poke or a prod. So we're in this bed and breakfast, and it was a nice old bed and breakfast in Palm Harbor. And as we go to bed that night, nothing weird happened. I thought there was a heaviness in the room, but nothing out of the, not enough to really say anything. And that morning, I get up to go to use the restroom, and Lisa glances over and sees a shape sitting on the end of the bed, a depression that actually sort of stands up and leaves. And it wasn't where I had just been sitting. It wasn't where it was. It was an actual shape towards the end of the bed of someone, a little something had been sitting there, which sort of startled her a little bit. And then as she got up, something touched her, but she didn't say anything to me about it. So we go downstairs to get our breakfast, and we're going down the hallway, and I felt something actually grab my shirt. as we're going down that hallway, and I didn't see anything about it. And we get to the bottom of the stairs, and I look at Lisa, and she looks at me, and I go, "Did you get touched?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I actually got touched a couple of times." And she told me about something sitting on that bed. So we go down to the eating area, and this room was very nice. And we sit down, and we just start to eat, and I just decided to cut through it, and I said, "So how long has this place been haunted?" And she stops, and she just stares at us, and she says, "What happened? What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel?" And come to find out, a little boy had died there. And she confirmed that there was his ghost there. In fact, this ghost would even play pranks on her, hide her keys, and do all sorts of mischievous things to her throughout the day. So she was super interested that we actually had an encounter with this little ghost spirit. So those are my two ghost stories. I have more I can tell, but I thought those would be sort of interesting for this. Happy Halloween. You're never going to know what you're going to see or what you're going to feel, so just be aware and be safe.
So, Phill, as we bring our Halloween special to an end, why don't we end on a musical number?
By Meatloaf?
Well, maybe not Meatloaf. Maybe somebody even stranger than Meatloaf.
There's only one person I can think of who's stranger than Meatloaf.
This is true. This is very true. One Jared Lytle.
Ah, Jared.
Yes, I remember. I remember every little thing as if it happened only yesterday. I was barely 17, and I once killed a boy with a Fender guitar. Now, I don't remember if it was a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, but I do remember that it had a heart of chrome and a voice like a horny angel. I don't remember if it was a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, but I do remember that it wasn't at all easy. It required the perfect combination of the right power chords and the precise angle from which to strike. The guitar bled for about a week afterward, and the blood was smooth, dark, and rich, like wild berries. The blood of the guitar was Chuck Berry red. The guitar bled for about a week afterward, but it ran out beautifully, and I was able to play notes that I had never even heard before. So, I took my guitar, and I smashed it against the wall. I smashed it against the floor. I smashed it against the body of a varsity cheerleader. Smashed it against the hood of a car. Smashed it against the 1981 Harley Davidson. The Harley howled in pain. The guitar howled in heat. And I ran up the stairs to my parents' bedroom. Mommy and Daddy were sleeping in the moonlight. Slowly I opened the door, creeping in the shadows right up to the foot of their bed. I raised the guitar high above my head, and just as I was about to bring the guitar crashing down upon the center of the bed, my father woke up screaming, "Stop! Wait a minute! Stop it, boy! What do you think you're doing? That's no way to treat an expensive musical instrument!" And I said, "Damn it, Daddy! You know I love you. But you've got a hell of a lot to learn about rock and roll!"
Well, folks, we hope that you've enjoyed these terrifying tales from the elephant's graveyard.
I know you must be shaking in your trunks right now, but try to calm down, and we'll see you next time.